The tall glass building downtown looked like a clean mirror in the sun, and inside it everything felt polished and controlled. The floors shined, the lights were bright, and people walked fast with badges swinging on their necks. At the very top of the company was the CEO named Ryan, a man known for big plans and quick jokes. He liked to speak with confidence, and he often used humor when others felt tense. Some workers truly liked him, and some only smiled because they felt they had to. On the ground floor, behind a wall of thick glass, stood a heavy steel safe that looked like it belonged in a movie. It was large, dark, and silent, with a keypad and security lights that blinked in a steady rhythm. The company stored important papers and valuable items inside it, and most workers were told to never go near it without permission. Only a few managers had access cards for the glass room, and even they did not know the full code. On the day of the company event, the lobby filled with soft music, light snacks, and careful laughter. Workers gathered in small groups and tried to look relaxed, though many still spoke in quiet voices. Ryan stepped into the open space near the glass wall and lifted one hand as if he was greeting a crowd at a show. He smiled, looking pleased with the attention, and he pointed his thumb toward the safe behind him. He made a joke about how everyone wanted to know what secrets were locked away, and the people nearby chuckled. Then he said that if anyone could open the safe without his help, he would marry that person, and the crowd laughed louder because they believed it was only a joke. Some people clapped, some shook their heads, and some repeated the words to others like it was a fun story to share. Ryan laughed too, enjoying the reaction, and he moved on to talk with managers as if nothing important had happened. The safe remained locked, the glass remained closed, and the security lights kept blinking like they always did. Near the back of the lobby stood a maintenance worker named Adam, a quiet man who kept his eyes low and his movements careful. Adam was a single dad, and he took extra shifts when he could because money always felt tight. On that day he had brought his daughter Mila with him because her school had closed early, and he had no one else to watch her. Mila was 9 years old, small and calm, with a focused look that often surprised adults. She held her father's hand while the crowd laughed, and she did not join the laughter at all. She stared straight at the safe as if it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Adam noticed her serious face and gave a small nervous smile, believing she was only curious. He told her it was just a joke and that the safe was locked for a reason. Mila looked up at him for a moment, then looked back at the safe as if she had not heard the word joke. Her eyes moved across the keypad, the blinking lights, and the way the glass door met the metal frame. She watched the people too, especially Ryan, and she watched how he stood and how he moved his hands. The event slowly drifted into normal office chatter, and groups began to spread out again. Ryan moved away from the safe, surrounded by assistants and managers, and the crowd's excitement faded. Adam was called to fix a loose sign near the entrance, and he asked Mila to stay close. Mila nodded, but her attention kept pulling toward the glass room. She stepped a little nearer while Adam worked, and she stood still like a statue while her eyes collected details. She noticed that the safe room had overhead lights that reflected on the glass in a certain pattern. She noticed that the keypad had a faint shine on a few buttons, as if they were touched more often than the others. She noticed a small camera above the door, angled slightly downward, and she wondered what it could really see. Mila had learned from her grandfather, an old watch repairman, that machines follow rules and that hands reveal habits. Her grandfather used to let her sit beside him and watch tiny gears turn, and he used to say that careful people leave fewer clues, but no one leaves none. Mila did not know corporate rules, but she understood patterns, and patterns were enough to start. That evening, Adam and Mila returned to their small apartment with tired steps. Adam made simple food and tried to relax, but his mind stayed full of bills and schedules. Mila went to the table with a notebook and a pencil, and she began drawing boxes and lines with quiet confidence. Adam asked what she was doing, and she said she was drawing the safe, because she wanted to remember it clearly. Adam gave a soft laugh, thinking it was just a child's new interest, and he told her it was not important. Mila did not argue, and she did not look up, because she was already building a map in her mind. She drew the glass wall first, then the door, then the keypad, and then she added the lights and the camera. She wrote down numbers she guessed might matter, not because she knew the code, but because she wanted a place to begin. Her pencil moved slowly, and she paused often, as if replaying the moment when Ryan stood near the keypad. She remembered how he placed his hand, how his fingers pressed with confidence, and how he did not hesitate, because people who hesitate often hide something. Mila believed that confident movement could be studied, and studied movement could become knowledge. Adam watched her for a moment from the kitchen, then told her to get ready for bed. Mila nodded and closed the notebook, but she kept it close like a secret treasure. Later, when the room was quiet and Adam was resting, Mila opened the notebook again under a small lamp. She stared at her drawing and thought about the shiny buttons on the keypad and the rhythm of the security lights. She thought about how people repeat habits even when they think no one is watching. She thought about Ryan's joke and how everyone laughed as if the idea was impossible. Mila did not feel anger, and she did not feel a need to prove anyone wrong, because her mind was not focused on pride. Her mind was focused on the puzzle itself, and a puzzle was simply a challenge waiting for the right key. Outside the window, the city lights blinked like the safe lights in the lobby, steady and patient. Inside, a quiet girl decided that the safe was not just a locked box, but a story that could change her father's life. She did not know how she would do it yet, but she knew she would try, because impossible things often become possible when someone refuses to stop thinking. The next morning arrived quietly, and Adam and Mila returned to the tall glass building before most workers came in. Adam signed in at the desk and greeted the guard, who knew him well and barely looked up. Mila walked beside her father, holding her notebook close to her chest and watching everything with calm attention. The lobby felt different without the noise of the event, and the safe behind the glass looked even more serious in the early light. Adam began his usual work, checking doors and lights, while Mila sat on a bench where she could see the safe clearly. She pretended to draw simple pictures, but her eyes kept lifting to the keypad and the blinking lights. She noticed that the lights blinked in the same rhythm every day, like a quiet clock that never stopped. She also noticed that a cleaner passed the glass room at the same time each morning, wiping the outside without ever touching the door. Mila learned that routine was everywhere, even in places that claimed to be secure. During the next few days, Mila came with her father whenever she could, and no one questioned it because Adam was trusted and quiet. Mila listened more than she spoke, and people often forgot she was there. She watched managers enter codes on smaller doors nearby, and she noticed how their hands moved without thought. Some pressed fast, some slow, and some paused before the last number. She began to understand that memory lived in the body, not just in the mind. At home, she added more drawings to her notebook, mapping movements and guessing patterns. She never wrote a full code, because she knew guessing was useless, but she marked which keys were touched most often and which ones stayed dull. Adam noticed her focus but believed it was harmless curiosity, and he felt a small sense of pride that his daughter was so observant. He did not know that her quiet attention was building something much larger. One afternoon, a small problem appeared in the glass room when a sensor light flickered too long, and Adam was called to check it. Mila followed him inside the glass area for the first time, her heart steady and her steps careful. The safe stood close now, taller than she expected, and she felt the cool air from the security system brush her face. Adam worked on the light while Mila stood still, pretending to wait. From that distance, she could see tiny marks on the keypad, marks that were invisible from far away. She saw that 4 buttons had a smoother surface, worn by frequent use, and she felt a quiet excitement rise in her chest. She did not touch anything, and she did not speak, because she knew that knowing when not to act was just as important as knowing when to act. When they left the glass room, Mila felt like she had stepped into the center of a mystery and walked out with a piece of it in her pocket. At home that night, Mila spread her notebook open and studied her drawings with new understanding. She erased some guesses and added new ones, slowly narrowing her focus. She remembered Ryan's confident hand movements and how he never looked down at the keypad when he used it. That meant the code was simple to him, maybe tied to something personal, something easy to remember. Mila thought about common habits and numbers people liked, and she thought about how often people repeat patterns without realizing it. She did not rush, because rushing made mistakes, and mistakes were loud. Adam watched her from the doorway and asked if she wanted help with homework, and Mila smiled and said she was finished. Adam nodded and went to bed, trusting that his daughter was safe in her own world of drawings and thoughts. Days passed, and Mila's confidence grew quietly inside her. She noticed that Ryan often visited the safe early in the morning, before most workers arrived. She noticed that he used the same hand every time and pressed the buttons with the same rhythm. Mila practiced that rhythm on the table at home, tapping lightly as if it were a game. She was not copying blindly, but learning the feeling of it, the timing and flow. She understood that the code was not just numbers, but a pattern of movement. One morning, while Adam spoke with a supervisor nearby, Mila stood alone near the glass and watched Ryan open the safe from a distance. She did not see the numbers, but she saw the order of motion, the way his fingers traveled. In that moment, something clicked in her mind, not as a full answer, but as a strong direction. She felt calm, because calm thinking made space for clarity. Mila did not tell her father what she was planning, because she did not want to worry him. She knew Adam worked hard and carried enough weight already. Instead, she waited for the right moment, the moment when curiosity could become action without harm. That moment came sooner than expected when a small power test was announced for the building, and some systems would briefly reset. Adam was assigned to stay near the lobby, and Mila was allowed to wait nearby as usual. The safe lights blinked differently during the test, slower and softer, as if the building itself was taking a breath. Mila felt her chance arrive quietly, not with noise or drama, but with a simple opening. She walked toward the glass room with steady steps and used the access card Adam had placed on the table earlier, believing it was just for emergencies. The door opened, and no alarm sounded, because the test had softened the system. Standing in front of the safe, Mila felt small but certain. She placed her fingers on the keypad, matching the rhythm she had practiced so many times. She pressed the buttons she believed mattered, following the pattern she had studied, not rushing and not hesitating. The safe made a low sound, and Mila paused, holding her breath. She pressed the final button and stepped back, her heart steady and her eyes wide. For a moment, nothing happened, and then the lock released with a quiet click that felt louder than any shout. The safe door shifted slightly, just enough to show that it was no longer sealed. Mila did not open it fully, because she did not need to, and she did not touch anything inside. She stepped away as the power test ended and the lights returned to normal, leaving the safe closed but unlocked, waiting to be noticed. Mila returned to her bench as if nothing had happened, her notebook resting on her lap and her face calm. Adam finished speaking with his supervisor and glanced at her, seeing only his quiet daughter waiting patiently. No one realized what had changed in those few minutes, and the lobby returned to its usual rhythm. Mila felt a mix of excitement and responsibility, because she understood that opening the safe was only the beginning. She knew that the real challenge would be what came next, when adults would have to face what a child had done. As she sat there, she looked at the glass room and thought about Ryan's joke, the words spoken lightly without care. She did not feel proud or afraid, but thoughtful, because she knew that sometimes impossible things happen not to shock the world, but to remind it to pay attention. The change was discovered the next morning when Ryan arrived earlier than usual and placed his hand on the safe with his usual confidence. He pressed the keypad in his familiar rhythm and paused because something felt different to him. The lock did not resist in the way it always had, and the door shifted with a softness that made his smile fade. Ryan stepped back slowly and looked at the glass room as if it had betrayed him. He closed the door carefully and tried the code again, and the safe responded the same way, unlocked and waiting. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with disbelief, because he knew he had never shared the code with anyone. He called for security, and soon the lobby filled with quiet tension instead of morning greetings. Guards checked cameras and systems while managers whispered among themselves, unsure of what to think. The cameras showed no forced entry, no broken glass, and no strange movement, only normal routines and familiar faces. The idea that someone had opened the safe without permission began to spread like a quiet storm. Adam was called into a small office with two supervisors, and he sat stiffly in the chair, unsure why he was there. Mila waited outside, swinging her feet and holding her notebook, feeling calm even as voices grew louder inside. Adam answered questions about his work, his schedule, and his access, and he told the truth because the truth was simple. He had fixed lights, checked doors, and followed orders like always. The supervisors believed him, because he had never given them a reason not to. Still, the mystery remained, and Ryan himself stepped into the room, his expression serious but controlled. He asked Adam if he had seen anything unusual, and Adam shook his head, feeling his chest tighten. Ryan thanked him and dismissed him, but his eyes carried questions that had no answers yet. Outside the office, Mila stood when she saw her father and slipped her hand into his, sensing his worry without needing words. Adam asked if she was all right, and she nodded with a small smile that surprised him. They returned to the lobby, where workers spoke in low voices and glanced at the glass room with curiosity and fear. Mila looked at the safe and felt the weight of what she had done settle gently on her shoulders. She knew she could stay silent, and the mystery would grow, but she also knew that silence would not help her father. Mila believed that truth, when given carefully, could protect more than it harmed. She waited for the right moment, just as she had waited before. That moment came when Ryan stood alone near the safe, staring at it as if it were a riddle mocking him. Mila stepped forward slowly, her small footsteps barely making a sound on the polished floor. Adam noticed and started to call her back, but she squeezed his hand and kept walking. Ryan turned when he heard movement and looked down at the girl with surprise. Mila looked up at him without fear and spoke in a clear and calm voice. She said that the safe had been opened during the power test, and that no one had broken anything. Ryan frowned, not angry, but confused, and asked her how she knew. Mila took a breath and said that she had watched carefully, learned patterns, and used the moment when systems were soft. The lobby fell silent as people realized the child was not joking. Ryan asked if she was saying she opened the safe, and Mila nodded once, holding her notebook tightly. Adam stepped forward quickly, his face pale, and said that his daughter must be mistaken. Mila turned to her father and spoke gently, telling him she was not mistaken and that she had not taken or touched anything inside. Ryan raised his hand, stopping the growing noise, and asked Mila to explain slowly. Mila described the worn keys, the repeated rhythm, and the habits people did not notice in themselves. She spoke without pride and without fear, as if she were explaining how a clock worked. The managers listened, stunned, because her words made sense in a way that excuses never could. Security checked the safe again and confirmed that nothing was missing and nothing was disturbed. Ryan felt a strange mix of shock and respect, because his joke had been answered in a way he had never imagined. He looked at Adam, whose hands were shaking, and realized that the man had no idea what his daughter was capable of. Ryan then looked back at Mila and asked why she had done it. Mila said she wanted to see if it was possible, and because impossible things often hide behind careless words. Her answer made the room even quieter, because it was simple and honest. Ryan laughed softly then, not with humor, but with wonder, because he understood that his power and confidence had blinded him. Ryan asked Mila if she knew what his joke had promised, and she nodded, saying she knew it was a joke. She said she did not want a promise or a reward, and that she only wanted her father to be safe and respected. Adam felt tears burn his eyes, because he had worked his whole life to protect his daughter, never realizing she was protecting him too. Ryan took a deep breath and said that jokes spoken lightly can create serious moments, and that this was one of them. He did not speak of marriage, but he spoke of responsibility, growth, and the future. He ordered the safe code changed and security improved, but he also ordered something else that surprised everyone. Ryan announced that Mila would be given a chance to learn, not as a worker, but as a student. He said the company would support her education and curiosity, because talent should be guided, not ignored. He also said that Adam would be promoted to a role where his honesty and dedication could be seen and valued. The room filled with quiet agreement, because no one could deny what they had witnessed. Mila listened with wide eyes, not fully understanding what her future might hold, but feeling that she had chosen the right path. Adam held her close, overwhelmed by pride and relief, and for the first time in years, he felt that the world had noticed him. As the crowd slowly returned to work, the glass room no longer felt like a place of fear, but like a reminder. Ryan stood alone again, looking at the safe and then at the small girl walking away with her father. He realized that leadership was not about locked doors and strong words, but about recognizing truth when it appears in unexpected forms. Mila walked beside Adam, her notebook tucked under her arm, knowing that her quiet thinking had changed more than a lock. She did not feel like a hero, and she did not feel powerful, because what she felt was something steadier. She felt understood, and that feeling stayed with her as the building returned to its normal rhythm, forever changed by the impossible thing a child had done. The days that followed felt different for everyone in the glass building, as if the walls themselves remembered what had happened. Adam arrived at work with a straighter posture, not because his job had changed yet, but because something inside him had. People who once passed him without a glance now nodded or smiled, and some even stopped to speak. Mila noticed this change quietly, understanding that respect often comes not from noise, but from truth revealed at the right time. Ryan kept his word about responsibility, and meetings were held not in secret, but with open discussion and careful listening. The safe was upgraded, the systems were reviewed, and habits were questioned across the company. Workers began to understand that safety was not only about strong locks, but about awareness and humility. Mila was invited to visit a learning room that Ryan arranged within the company, a place filled with books, models, and simple machines. She did not feel proud or nervous when she entered, because curiosity had always felt like home to her. Mentors visited her a few times each week, speaking gently and asking questions instead of giving orders. Mila answered honestly, sometimes surprising them with how clearly she thought. She learned new ideas, but she also taught them something important, which was the value of observing before acting. Adam watched his daughter grow in confidence, and though he still worried like any parent, his worry slowly turned into trust. He realized that protecting Mila did not mean holding her back, but standing beside her as she moved forward. Ryan often observed Mila from a distance, reflecting on how a careless joke had changed his view of leadership. He stopped making promises he did not mean, and he stopped hiding behind humor when things mattered. He began to speak more carefully, understanding that words carry weight long after laughter fades. Ryan invited Adam into planning discussions, not because of the past event alone, but because Adam had shown steady honesty in every moment. Adam shared ideas simply, never trying to impress, and people listened because his words were grounded. The company slowly shifted, becoming a place where quiet workers felt seen and careful thinkers felt valued. No announcement could have created that change, because it grew naturally from a single truth revealed. Mila returned home each evening to her small apartment, still sitting at the same table with her notebook. The drawings inside became more complex, but her habit remained the same. She drew not to show others, but to understand the world around her. Adam sometimes sat across from her, watching quietly, feeling grateful for moments that once felt ordinary. They talked about school, work, and small plans for the future, never needing grand words. Mila did not think of herself as special, because to her, learning was simply living with attention. She understood that the safe was never the true challenge, but only a doorway to something larger. One afternoon, Ryan visited the learning room while Mila worked on a small mechanical model. He asked her what she had learned since that day, expecting an answer about machines or systems. Mila thought for a moment and said she learned that people often forget to look closely. Ryan smiled gently, knowing how true that was. He thanked her, not for opening the safe, but for opening his eyes. Mila nodded, accepting the thanks without ceremony, because she believed understanding was the real reward. Ryan left the room feeling lighter, aware that growth sometimes comes from listening to the smallest voice. As weeks passed, the story of the safe became something people spoke about with calm respect rather than shock. It was no longer about a locked box or a bold joke, but about trust, attention, and change. Adam settled into his new role, finding confidence in being seen for who he was. He worked hard as always, but now his work carried meaning beyond routine. Mila continued learning, asking questions, and observing patterns, never rushing and never forcing results. She knew that life was filled with quiet systems waiting to be understood, and she was patient enough to wait. On a quiet evening, Adam and Mila walked past the building as the sun reflected on the glass walls. Mila looked up at the windows and then at her father, asking if he was happy. Adam smiled and said happiness was not loud, but it felt steady, and that was enough. Mila held his hand and nodded, satisfied with the answer. The building behind them stood strong and silent, no longer a symbol of power alone, but a reminder of humility learned. Somewhere inside, a safe remained locked, stronger than before, but no longer untouchable in meaning. The story did not end with a promise fulfilled or a joke proven wrong, but with understanding earned. A single dad found respect without asking for it, a child found guidance without losing curiosity, and a leader found wisdom without losing authority. Life continued as it always does, quietly and steadily, shaped by moments that seem small until they are understood. Mila walked forward into her future with the same calm eyes that once studied a keypad, knowing that attention and patience could unlock far more than steel doors. And in that simple truth, the impossible became not a miracle, but a lesson carried forward by those willing to learn.